Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's presentation, introducing MercuryFleet Advanced Fleet Management. Today, we will introduce you to the new MercuryFleet solution and how it can help you proactively manage all aspects of your fleet with a single solution. During today's call, all attendees will be muted in the On24 application. If you have questions, you can submit those via the Q&A panel on your screen at any time during the presentation. We will collect these questions and address them at the end of the presentation during the Q&A portion. Also, we are recording today's call, and the recording will be made available to you after today's event. And now I'd like to introduce today's presenter, Todd Bucher. Todd is Vice President of Fleet and Carrier Management at MercuryGate, and he leads our software development for our MercuryFleet and Karma solutions. Todd?
Well, thanks, Kevin. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for taking some time out of your busy days to take a look at our MercuryFleet product. Hopefully there's a lot of things to cover, but hopefully we can get it all in an hour. Feel free to put in those questions as they come up. I'll have a few slides here. I'm going to try to make these quick so we can spend most of the time on the live content. But just a little bit about MercuryGate TMS. It's a single platform, global TMS. And the great part about MercuryGate is that we can have all different kinds of customers on it: 3PL, freight brokers, shippers, carriers, forwarders, and all of that business, and many of our customers have different parts of that, or all of those segments, all can be run on the same application at the same time. So you really truly get a single platform, no jumping from one platform for fleet, another one for your TMS, and a different one for brokerage, those kind of things. Everything can be on one platform. Just kind of a quick overview of the TMS suite. We have everything from the beginning to the end of that whole process, from procure to do RFPs and bidding, the buy and sell rates that you can manage inside the TMS. Of course, planning your freight management, loads, routes, carriers, all that kind of thing. The execution part, where you're getting rates, checking contracts, tendering to carriers, getting status updates on the load until it delivers. And of course, the settlement portion, where you can settle whoever your capacity is that moved that freight and invoice your customer. Of course, the MercuryFleet part of it allows you to bring in the actual private fleet, carrier fleet, or independent contractor fleet into that workflow seamlessly. So just a little bit about fleet. Of course, we support all those models, from a shipper model that has a private fleet, or a shipper that uses an independent contractor or owner-operator kind of thing. Of course, carrier fleet, and that we can do both asset and asset light. So if you're into the independent contractor scene, we can do that for you. If you are truly all asset, we can do it, or any combination of both of them, easily done within MercuryFleet and the TMS. Brokerage with carrier type customers. So we see a lot of brokers expanding that from just freight broker into freight and truck broker. So you get that carrier following, you can put that into the fleet product and use that with your brokerage. We have many customers doing 3PL, or 3PL customers doing fleet takeovers, where they'll take over a customer or a shipper's fleet for them, manage that, and blend that in with their other freight business to make that fleet run more efficient and generate more revenue for their customers. Freight forwarder, we have a very large freight forwarder customer that uses MercuryFleet, and they use it for mostly their container management as they move those containers all across the world. So on the demo today, it should be pretty simple, but there is a lot to go over. We'll start out with the fleet execution, which is on the TMS side, or where you'd normally expect to manage your freight and all the execution stuff you would do in a daily operation. Sourcing capacity, driver and equipment dispatch, a little pool management, some driver planning and tracking equipment. And then we'll jump over to the compliance management side of MercuryFleet, where we'll look at driver and fleet equipment profiles, so you can have all the data about everything. What we're doing with ELDs and hours of service management, driver notifications, fleet equipment tracking, and drug and alcohol test management. So with all that said, we'll get to the live demo right now. Takes a second to get the screen up. I will do my best to not run faster than the demo can handle. I apologize in advance if I start clicking faster than the screen can respond, and if you see that, feel free to send in a comment. I have people watching me here too, so hopefully that won't happen. But the product is extremely fast, so sometimes that happens when I do demos. So what you're looking at now is what we call our Easy Vision screen in the TMS. All my loads are right here. So this is the freight I have to do. You can see there's a list of a lot of things. And I'll just go over it briefly in case you haven't seen Easy Vision and MercuryGate TMS before. I just want to briefly cover it. Like our older versions, we have report formats. So I can have different reports for things that are on the screen. But with Easy Vision, you get even more detail. You don't have to drill in as in the past. So if I hover over the origin, I can see all kinds of detail about it. Same with the destination. If I hover over the destination, all the detail about that is there. If I need to change a delivery time, I can jump in there and edit the time for the delivery. Right from the hover, I click on it, and then it shows up here on the side, and I can make changes to it. I can see who the carrier is on the load quickly and get the detail for that. Same with financials. If I hover over the financial section, so you get the idea. All kinds of information on this main screen, and I didn't have to drill into anything or make a bunch of clicks. Wherever I just need to move my mouse and the information becomes available. And if I need to do something from there, I can. So if I need to do something with managing the rates and run something through the process, I can do that. If I need to change the rate, if I need to change the carrier, all of that is very easy from the screen. And when I'm talking about carrier, you'll hear that a lot in the demo. Carrier can mean a third-party carrier or screen seemed to go away. A third-party carrier or your own fleet. And that's the way we've built the product. So if you're a current MercuryGate customer and you're using us for one thing and you want to incorporate your fleet into the product, it fits seamlessly into your current workflow. If not, and you're new to MercuryFleet, you can do all of your external capacity, internal capacity together as well as your brokerage and do it all on the same platform at the same time. So I'll go over the touch points where fleet is highlighted inside the TMS. If you're interested in seeing how the whole TMS works, that is a completely different demo, and we'd be happy to show that to you. But today we're going to just really talk about the MercuryFleet aspect. So one of the earliest touch points is when I'm going to decide what power I'm going to put on a load. And this column over here on the right side, we call that our easy click activities. And you can see they have little blue buttons next to them. I'm going to click on the one for assign rate and the third one down, and you're going to see another screen pop up. And you can see I've already got a customer rate. This automatically happened when I entered the load. It rated it for me for the customer side. But now I have to decide who's going to haul this load. So I'll click on the assign carrier rate button. And then what's going to open up is what we call manage quotes. And manage quotes is our place to do all kinds of sourcing of capacity. There's a lot of different buttons across the top that do a lot of different things. Auto selection can do some stuff where you can build rules into the system to auto select your power. From contract, if I click that button, it's going to come back and bring back any contracts I have with any carriers, including my own fleet. So you'll hear me say Badgerland Trucking a lot. That is my own private fleet for our demo. So you can see I have other carriers' rates show up here, Landstar, Roadrunner, Schneider. I can select from here Badgerland Trucking and then accept that rate. Sorry, I had to move the screen to get to the button. But I can accept that, and it comes back to that landing page and manage quotes. Now I have some other choices I can make. Karma is our carrier management system, and with this button, that would allow me to search for carriers based on particular things in their profile, including my own fleet. So everything about my fleet is very similar to how a carrier would work also. So you can see I can search by a mode. I can search by different certifications, different services, all kinds of things in this particular screen. I can hit the search button with just the mode set up, and you can see it'll bring me back a lot of carriers. Now, this is great if I'm looking to make a lot of phone calls or send out a lot of requests, but I may want less carriers to contact. So I can bring the search back up, and maybe I want carriers that just operate on this particular lane. So you can see there's a lot of different filtering or searching features in this for authority, equipment, lanes. So this one, the lane is from California back to Wisconsin. I can check the boxes to use the lane. I can add a radius onto the lane search. And then once I do the search, it'll bring me back carriers that have told me that they want to run a specific lane for me. And you can see then the carrier choice is reduced. Now, my fleet would be in here, but I've already selected my fleet. But you get the idea. I can bring back everything from there if I'd like also. We also have a MercuryFleet button. So in the From contract, I brought back Badgerland Trucking, but I don't know what driver I'm going to put on the load yet. So maybe I have a large fleet of drivers, so I just know I'm doing the load, but I don't know which one of my guys is going to do it. But if for some reason I already know who's going to do this, I can click on the MercuryFleet button, and you can see all my drivers are already listed with the equipment they're currently using. So if I wanted to add the driver and assign it to my carrier all at the same time, I can do it in this step just by selecting one of these here and then hitting OK. So I'll pick my driver here, hit OK, and we get back to the landing page and you can see it puts in the driver's name and the equipment that he has. So once I'm at this point, I can hit the select button. I'm going to select that choice I made. I'm going to use the contracted rate. And then I'm all done. And you can see now my assign rate master activity shows that they're both complete. My customer rate is over here at $2,600. My capacity rate is $2,193, 16% margin on that load. That's a good day. So then that goes through the rest of the workflow. And the workflow that we have, and you can see this activity is send carrier confirmation. The workflow that we have in the TMS is highly configurable. It can be very basic from, put the freight in, get a rate, put the power on it, and deliver it, to something very complex. It all depends on what your needs are as a customer. If you need special steps in the workflow for accessorials or international moves or anything like that, that can be built in. If the truck has been at the stop too long, we can put in workflow for detention. If the truck breaks down, we can have workflows for repowering. If the truck gets there and there's no freight, we can have different branches off the workflow for truck order not used. So I don't want to get into too much TMS stuff, but there is definitely a lot of flexibility in the workflow. So one of the next steps then after we've decided to put that load on our own truck would be to dispatch my driver. And this is unique to MercuryFleet. It's a little bit more robust dispatch screen. So you can see we have a screen that comes up once I click on the dispatch blue button, and this is where I'm going to dispatch the driver. Once again, I have a couple different choices for searching for a driver. If I know the driver, I can just click on that magnifying glass and it's going to bring up my list of drivers, and I can pick one from this list. That's pretty easy if I want to do that. But maybe I need to find a driver that has some certain things that I can't remember all my drivers and what qualifications they have. I can click on that little S up there on the top, and that's called the Super Search. It brings up a very powerful search for drivers. So if I want to find a driver, is he an employee or an independent contractor, I can pick one of those. Of course, the driver might have to have hazardous material training, and I have feedback rating, so I want to make sure he's, at least a 4 on the scale there. I can hit a search button and see what comes back out of my driver list right there. Oh, nobody's got these qualifications. Let me try again, take the hazmat off. Okay, so you can see I have a fair amount of drivers that are well ranked. They're 4 or better on the ranking. Well, this load is picking up on Monday and Tuesday. I got to make sure this driver schedule matches those days. All right, so these guys can work. And if I expand this little button right here, you can see I have all the driver's information, contact information, his equipment that's currently assigned, along with his schedule for the day, and if he has any references, those would display too. If this is not enough data to make a decision at that point, we have this little paper icon up in the top, and if I click that paper icon, what it does is actually brings up the driver's complete profile from MercuryFleet. So I can look at anything that's in the guy's profile and answer any questions I might have. And we'll go through the profile a little bit later in the demo, but you can see the entire thing is going to be here, from what training and certifications he has, any documents, any notes, anything I could ever want to know becomes available. So let's say I like this guy. If I want, I can continue searching. I'm going to check this box right here and put select driver in. It's going to come back and ask me, your driver already has equipment. Do you want to use that equipment or not? Of course I do. I'm going to use that. But if I had equipment that was preloaded for him, or I knew he was going to get to the yard and pick up a trailer that I don't know yet, I can say I don't want to use the equipment. Now, that doesn't mean I can't change the equipment later. I certainly can. I can click on this magnifying glass and pick a different trailer from all of my trailers that I have. Now, one thing that's really neat in our product is that we allow equipment sharing. So if you have interchange agreements with other carriers, or you have acquisitions, or just other companies you like to work with that share equipment, we can pick equipment that belongs to my company, Badgerland Trucking, where you can see I'm sharing equipment with Landstar Ranger, so I could use Landstar Ranger's equipment if I'd like, or any other company that I like to use, that I have an agreement with for trailer pooling or equipment sharing. So I can change that, whether it's the tractor or the trailer, anytime I want. We can also accommodate trailer 2 and trailer 3, along with containers 1, 2, and 3. So if you're doing triples and they happen to be pulling intermodal containers, you could do that too. We have team driver capability. You can see this is the, in this box right below the main driver is the team driver. We have a note section on these. See this add note button there? That's where you can add a note. As a dispatcher, you may be talking to the driver, and he tells you he'd like a load after this one going to a certain place, or maybe he needs a week off or something like that. You can add the note here in dispatch, and it shows up for the load planner. It also shows up for the compliance people so they know what's going on. So once I've decided this is my driver and I can fill in the date, I'm going to put a completed date in there today and save that. And then the last step it's going to ask you is say, do you want to update the driver's equipment in his profile? If I have changed the trailer or anything like that, of course I'd want to update it. In this case, I haven't made any changes, so I'm not going to update it. I'll say do not update. And then that will complete that activity. And you can see up here, it used to say dispatch. In the right corner now it says set arrival and departure. So it continues to work through that workflow. And you can see as things get picked up, this load is picked up, you can see the in transit over here on the left, and the information about that pickup is available. I'm also going to mark this load delivered real quick to show you the last feature here real fast. Now there's ways to bring in this data from the outside world. But you can also update all your loads manually if you'd like to, for pickup and deliveries of the loads. So as this thing gets marked that it's delivered now, the next activity that's going to come up in my workflow is going to be called performance feedback. You can see that on the right side, second one down. And what that does is for my dispatcher to say, well, my driver did the delivery. How did this one go? And this works for your fleet, or it works for your carrier. So if I've dispatched some third-party carrier on this load, when they finish, I can give feedback about the carrier. If it's my own fleet, the feedback goes to the driver. So I can click on 1 to 4 stars, just like you would do at Amazon or something like that. So I'll put on there 4 stars, and I'll put in there that he was on time, and he brought pizza. So you can't complain about a driver that does that for you. And then that will save on the driver's profile. And then that load is going to fall off the board because it's delivered now. And now it's on to the whole financial workflow and get to bill somebody and pay somebody and take care of that business. So just want to go over a few steps in the TMS workflow process, talk about where the touch points for fleet are. And hopefully you can see that they're completely integrated with that product. Whether that would have been a carrier or my own fleet, it would have worked exactly the same. Some of the other places I'd like to take a look at over here on the left is you can see we have portlets. We have a MercuryFleet section. First stop on our tour here is going to be the driver board. So the driver board is going to load up here. And you see here's a list of all my drivers. Like most places inside of MercuryGate TMS, I can have different reports. I can create reports and save them for different teams. Or Badgerland is my main group of employee drivers, the champion drivers. Those are all my independent contractors that work for me. If I want to look at different drivers, maybe all my Ranger drivers that I work with, because they work with me and I get them loads, so I put them in the system. I could do that too. So I'm going to go to Badgerland drivers, and we're going to open up Valentino. We used him a few times already. And you have a whole section here of information about the driver, and this is where your load planner might spend some of his time. So if I need any detail about the driver, I can take a look here and I get a quick snapshot of the detail by expanding the details panel. I can also click on this paper icon, and like I did earlier, I can open up the entire driver profile and take a look at all the details I have. I have a load history panel that I expanded here, and you can see what's going on with this driver from his load perspective. He has one load that's in transit right now, and that's the purple one. He has 4 loads that are booked or pre-planned for him to move next. Right now, nothing delivered, but his delivered loads will also show in yellow. And if he had a load that was assigned to him but not yet accepted, it would be in red. From this part here, I can actually click on the little arrow and bring up the load details that he's delivering. And if I want, I can execute the easy click activities from here without going back into the main route board. So if I can click on the set arrival departure, I get the same window that you guys saw earlier in the demo, where I can set his arrival and departure times. So before I go on to the other tabs, this is great. We have his plan, but I need to plan out more things. I can come up to the More Actions button. We have a couple features here, the TMS load search and the truckstop.com search. Now, right now I don't have truckstop enabled, but if I click on the TMS load search, what it's going to do is it brings up that same plan up in the left corner. So you can see his purple load is in transit, and there's some green loads that he has planned for him later. Well, if you take a closer look, everything that's planned except for the purple one, or including the purple one, they're all going from Milwaukee to Los Angeles. So how do I get him back to Milwaukee to get his next load? I click on this where it says Find Load Here in the gap between the loads. And once I click on that, it populates all the search criteria on the right side of the screen and executes a quick search to find me a load that might fit in that gap. You can see it's returned a couple different loads. It's terrific. Now I can take a load, I can drag it over to this panel, say I like this one, maybe I don't like that one, maybe I want this one instead. I can change my mind and move them back and forth. I can go up here, I can change the search criteria, expand the radius up on the right side. For the origin, I can expand the radius on the destination. I can change the dates available. I can even change the criteria to make it a different type of criteria. If maybe I wasn't getting enough results, I could say multiple states or multiple zips or all points in the country, however you'd want to do it. But let's say I've decided I've got a result, and I'm going to pick it, and I'm going to move it over to the screen on the right. So you can see I dragged it over there. You can also double-click. Then I'm going to click on the Save button that's in the right corner there. So what that's going to do is take that load that I found in my planning screen and save it to the driver, assign it to my company, Badgerland Trucking. It's going to dispatch my driver on it automatically. You can see now in the driver's plan, there's a load there that's in the red. So that means I've planned it for the driver, I've assigned it to him. He has not accepted this load yet, so it still needs attention or in the red zone. But once he assigns or accepts that dispatch, then it'll turn green into the book status, and means he's accepted it, and it's one that he's going to do. The next panel in the driver board is the hours of service panel. Right now, there is no hours of service in here because he's not connected up to anything, but this is where you would look at and see how many hours he's worked today, what his off-duty, sleeper driving, and on-duty, not driving hours are, his hours remaining for today, and his hours remaining or available for tomorrow. And then the next box over will show his hours duty limit, whatever rule he's on, whether it's the 7-day or 8-day or any of the other rules that are available, and then give you the total in the last 7 or 8 days. The notes section, this is where when we were talking about in the dispatch screen, you could add a note during dispatch, and then that note would show up here. So you can see the second line down, here's a note that was added in the past that he needed a load from Milwaukee to Los Angeles. I can add a note here if I'd like. The compliance team would be able to see that. If the compliance team put a note in here saying they wanted to see this driver for a drug test or maybe had to schedule some hazmat training or whatever, those notes would be available here. So as a load planner, I would know I need to get this guy back to a certain area so he can do something. And then we have the satellite tracking. If the equipment is so enabled that the driver is assigned to, you would be able to see the tracking. So when I click on the tractor, I don't have any tracking data for that one. If I click on the trailer, well, I do have tracking data because the trailer has a SkyBits box on it. So you can see, the reading date and time, who the source was, the latitude, longitude, the nearest landmark, city, state, and country, of course, and then the distance from that nearest landmark. So if it says that top line, he's in Del Mar, New York, and he's 8.84 miles away from Del Mar, you can so he's not in, but he's real close, right? So that tracking detail for the equipment that he's currently assigned to would show up there. That's our driver board. We have what we call our equipment request process. And what equipment request is for is to kind of manage your equipment, right? Somebody wants a trailer spotted at a customer. I have a new driver starting next week. I need to get him a tractor. Whatever that might be, it's a way for somebody to put in the request for equipment, and then my equipment guys managing my fleet would know I need to get a trailer at a customer, I need to get a tractor somewhere. I have to do all that kind of stuff. So there's a request form, and I don't want to take all the time today going through the whole form here, but you take a look. The request type I can put in, is it a current driver, a new driver, customer spot, trailer pool, all those kind of things. Those drop-downs are fully configurable. So if there's something for your business that you would need this for, you can build it any way you'd like or configure it any way you like to do that. You can pick the different types of equipment, the groups of equipment, all that kind of stuff. Then these sections can be expanded or collapsed by configuration, or they can be like they are right now. So if it was for a new driver, I could select the driver and the carrier that the driver works for. I can pick the location detail of who's going to get the trailer or the tractor and who's going to pay for it. So if it's something maybe I'm charging my customer rent for a trailer, I can say it's going to bill to this particular customer, and then the destination location can be separate. So the billing address might be some big downtown building while the trailer gets spotted at a factory someplace. If it's to replenish a pool, we have a pool section with a pool location. We can define all of the stuff about the pool that you need to know. There's an additional details section just for a few other things we didn't know where else to put, so we created a section called additional details. One of the other things is, by spotting this trailer at a customer or moving this equipment to wherever I'm going to move it, what is it going to generate for revenue for me? So I can go into this section here in the revenue details, and I can pick I'm going to spot this in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and this trailer is going to do turns to, I don't know, Dallas, Texas. I'm going to run the miles, and that's going to be a 1,000-mile turn, and that's going to make me, let's say, $1.50 a mile, and I'm going to get 2 turns a week because I'm spotting this trailer at the customer. So I can see just a little quick calculation that's going to earn me about $3,000 a week in revenue by spotting this trailer. Now remember, this is a request process, so you want to put in the details here so the guy who's doing the request approval sees the potential for the earning of the trailer. You can attach documents or any links or add any notes that would support your request, and I'm going to close that. And then the next step on that process, it would look something like this. It's going to show up in the portlet for request. You can see it's approve or deny request. So if I click on the blue button, you can see I get the detail from the request that was entered. At this point, I can deny it, I can approve it, I can put the amount of trailers approved. So you could request 20 trailers, I might only approve 2. That could work that way. You have reasons for denying, when you want to fulfill that, and any comments in the response. Now, maybe I don't have enough information yet. I can come over to the more actions, and I can request additional information. and it added another activity. When I click on that, I can put my question in here. So I'm going to type a question. I'm going to click on the Ask button. You can see now it's gone. So the person who did the request would then click on it. You can see my questions up on the top of the screen whenever it loads here. The question history is on the top, and then they would put their answer on the bottom. And click the Answer button. So then that information would come back and forth between me as the approver and somebody else as a requester. Then I can bring it up, read it, there's the question, there's the answer. I can ask more, or I can just end it. I can accept the response, that goes away. Then I can go back through that approval and denial and say, yep, this is great. I'm going to approve one trailer. I'm going to fulfill the trailer immediately, so I can click on the date, and then I'll save it. You can see the next step of the workflow is to go find some equipment. So I don't want to go through the entire flow, but I can go and do some searches for equipment, find some equipment in my that I have available, and I can select a piece of equipment once I get my results. Right, so I can see where the trailer is coming from, or the equipment is coming from, and where it is arriving. Since I'm going to spot this trailer in Milwaukee, I might want to find one that's here in town. I can select that piece of equipment and select it, and then schedule move. And what happens now is it actually creates a move in the TMS workflow to move this equipment. So if I want to, I can put freight on that trailer and make a little money while I'm moving it around, or just assign a driver to it and have him go pull that trailer across town and pay him for his work. But that whole process there helps you keep track of your equipment and know where it's going and get it to where it needs to be on time. Kind of after the request, we have our screen that we call Scheduled Equipment. That's our Scheduled Equipment portlet. And this is where it's going to show all of your equipment and the detail about it. So I'm going to open up a random trailer here, and you can see we have a workflow here too. It's a very basic workflow, but it would be the trailer is empty, so I can load it, and I click on that button, and then once it's loaded, then I can unload it. So, but if you need a more complex workflow, maybe for some yard management kind of thing, we can do that for you. There's a detail section for the equipment, and you get a brief detail of the specs. You know, it's a 53-foot trailer. It's got a reefer on it, whatever you have to know. Does it have tracking? Yeah, it has a Skybits box. So you'd have that detail. You can look at the history of the equipment, the moves. So you can see as this trailer has gone from stop to stop, or here it went from Badgerland Trucking to Los Angeles to Milwaukee, and then went from Milwaukee to Los Angeles, and then from Los Angeles, somehow it magically appeared at Austin Straubel Airport in Green Bay, but you get the idea. This is a demo site, so not all my moves are realistic, but it does track the moves as you move a trailer from one place to another. We have our satellite tracking section on the bottom. We also, on the More Actions, we have a couple choices for pool management. So I can decide if I want to show the pool history and see where this trailer has been, and I can assign it to different pools whenever I feel the need to assign it to one. But you have the pool name and the location and all the detail about where that trailer has been. Now, if I want to change the pool location, I'd go back to the same place, but then I'd also select Change Pool Location from the menu. Click on that, and I get a nice little box that tells me the current location, and then I can change it to a different one. So I can assign that in MercuryFleet, and what it does is it actually opens up the fleet equipment profile, and then I get to go in there and add a new location. So I can see the history too in here of where that trailer has been, and I can go add a new location through the search window. So I can search from anything from my carrier locations at any carrier, not just Badgerland, or locations from any vendor at all. And the carrier ones would include my customer locations too. So I search, I get a lot of different locations. I can even break that down to say I just want to see terminals. Search there, and I'm going to move this trailer to Greensboro, North Carolina, effective right now. There you go. It's going to move the trailer to a different pool, assign it to that pool, and then somehow, some way, we'll get that trailer there. So that's our scheduled equipment portlet. I think that pretty much covers it from inside of the TMS for the execution portion of what MercuryFleet looks like. We're going to jump over now to the what we call the compliance side of MercuryFleet. So the screen looks slightly different. If you are a Karma customer, you might recognize it. Karma is our carrier management product, and we built MercuryFleet on top of our Karma architecture. So if you think about it, your drivers and your equipment all belong to a carrier of some sort. It's your carrier, not somebody else's carrier. So we build it into the same kind of framework. So you can see Badgerland Trucking is the second one on the screen here, along with all the other carriers that I have in my carrier management tool. If I click on the profile for Badgerland, I'll expand that so it's a little easier to see. You can see all the details about my carrier itself. My summary page, it tells me how my reviews are doing, my main location. The review tabs, these are all have little green lights or red lights on it. Karma has a feature called a dynamic rule set for carrier approval, which checks rules that you could define on what makes a carrier good or bad. And then as carriers are monitored through one of our monitoring partners, that rule set will run and activate or deactivate the carrier based on your rules. So you can see my rule set is run. I got a red flag on my insurance because it is a demo and Badgerland is not a real carrier, so I don't have real insurance. But you get the idea. It says that insurance is deficient. I don't have a new cargo. But I can override those kind of things if I really feel the need in the detail screen. You can see this carrier is on approval override, so that's why I'm still able to use it in the TMS. Not that I recommend doing that in real life, but if you want to, you can. Anyway, there's a lot of tabs here that I won't be going into today that are part of Karma. Certifications, insurance, carrier feedback, documents, safety, all that stuff, because we're really talking about Fleet today. And with Fleet, what you get is 3 additional tabs to your carrier profile. And that's the driver tab, the Fleet Equipment tab, and the Fleet Equipment Sharing tab. Pretty self-explanatory in the first two. So if I click on drivers, you can see I get a list of all the drivers I have. So if I click on our driver Valentino that we were using in the demo, his detail now will be available for us to take a look at. So on the first page is the details, and we capture all the details you can imagine about a driver, and if somebody comes up with more, I'm sure we'll add them. But the general details about who he is, his name, his number, what kind of driver he is, employee or contractor driver, the current status of this guy, is he active, why is he active, why is he inactive, when is he hired, when is he gone, that kind of thing. His contact details are available for us. What is he assigned to from a operations perspective? You can see he drives for Badgerland Trucking. He's at the domicile terminal up in Green Bay, and he's assigned to our heavy haul division. Got a teammate. His teammate's name is Maverick Vinales. On the Fleet Equipment, you can see the equipment that he's pulling. He's got a double axle tractor and this van, 009. License, detail, citizenship, even his ELD device that he's got, that he's using, which does not have an ELD right now. You have all the certifications. So if the driver has different certifications for a TWIC card or a CPAD or FAST, Safe Driver Award, you can have any of those documented here in this section. And then when you're doing the searches in the TMS for execution, you can say if I needed a driver that had a TWIC card, this guy would qualify because he does. We have a driver training section that you can use for documenting training. Open up one of these guys here. So this would say this is for a CDL endorsement training for hazardous material, a department that requested the training, all the dates, when did we tell the driver to do the training, when did he start it, when did he complete it. If you have a training location that you send them to, you can select it here, and then the location details will fill in. If you have any notes about the training, you can do that. This top section is just more driver detail. You can expand or collapse any of the things that we're showing today by the use of config groups and permissions. You can actually launch a few different actions from here. So if I wanted to, maybe I'm talking to the driver about training, I want to add a driver call log, I can do that from the screen. Or if I wanted to look at the audit history of this training event, I can click on that, and it'll bring back the audit history. That feedback rating that we talked about while we were in the execution system, this is where those ratings would go. So you can see this driver here is a 4.6 out of 5. And you can see all the different ratings he's received in the past. Now, you don't have to put a comment, so if I just want to put the stars, you can see they don't have anything. If I do want the comment, they can go right in there. See all the detail to it. If you have the proper permission, you can delete these comments or edit the comments if you'd like. Pretty much everything inside of MercuryFleet is controlled by a permission or a config group, so you can really focus what experience that your employees are going to get. You can actually add a review here too if you wanted to put one in here. Same exact looking box that you'd see come up in the TMS workflow, and you can do the 1 to 5 stars and any kind of comment you'd like. Next tab is just driver notes, and that's where when you add that note in the dispatch screen, you can see the same note here, Milwaukee to Los Angeles, load needed. I can add a note here, and the load planner will see that. If the load planner adds it, I'd see it here. So it's a good way to keep the communications up between different departments so everybody is on the same page of what that driver is looking for. The call log is something where you can document that you talked to your driver about something. If I click on one that I have here, the date of the call, who did I talk to, was the call an inbound or outbound call, what was the purpose, how long did it last, you can see the notes, he wanted a new tractor at that time. If I want to call somebody back, I can check this box and add a callback date, and then I can have the system actually send me an email saying, hey, you got to call this person back on this date because you said you wanted to. On the availability schedule, it's where we decide, or you decide, what the schedule that the driver is going to be able to work. You can put in the day of the week, start time, end time, and then a schedule override for any days that he can't work on. So if he may be able to work on Wednesday, but if it's Christmas, sorry, he's not doing that one. Documents, you can store any kind of document or document link about your driver. So if you have a driver qualification document or any, maybe it's a drug test, chain of custody form, whatever you wanted to store about a document, you could store it in this document section. And if I click on one of these, if it's a link, of course I click on it and get to see the link to the document. If it is a regular document that's uploaded, I can click the download button in the left corner and it would download that document so I could see it. Next tab is for PII data. If you have personal identifiable information that you need to have about your driver and keep it secure, we can store that. This is stored in an encrypted database that's not part of our Karma MercuryFleet application. It's an encrypted web service that talks to this screen to that database, so it's very safe, very secure storage for that data. And then if you need this data to use in a financial application, we can connect that with an encrypted web service call so that your financial application can get the data too. Don't have to use this, but it is available. You can show it, hide it, edit it, save it, all the normal functions, but it's just very encrypted, very safe. Drivers can have references. References could be just for anything you'd like. They can serve a purpose, or they can just be for information. So here's a reference that this driver is an ELD driver, mobility driver. It could mean something to you. To me in my demo, it means you guys got a cell phone. What tier? The dispatch tender email is used in the dispatch process, so when I dispatch a driver on a load, it'll actually send a dispatch document to his phone as an email. He can open up the email, click a link in the document, and accept the dispatch. Different activities can be added. Activities are something we use throughout Karma and MercuryFleet. If I had try a real quick explanation of activities, they're a little bit complex, but I can create an activity that says to add a, renew a driver's license, or to run a DMV MVR, or annual inspection on a piece of equipment. And then I build reports that are inside of the application that say, show me all the drivers that a license is going to expire within 15 days. So the report can run in the middle of the night, do that, and then the activities would automatically get added to all those driver profiles. And then you could get sent a report or view a report that says these are the guys that have activities that need to be done. And then really you're going to manage by exception at that point. So you could have 2,000, 10,000 drivers in the system, but really you only need to know about the 10 that are about to have driver's license expire. Or, just the equipment that needs to have maintenance, or just the equipment that needs to have an annual inspection. So activities are pretty cool. I'll open one of these guys up so you can take a look. You can see this one here is for an expired driver's license, and it has already been completed. Just as a quick summary, the system noticed that he had an expired license, so it's time to add an activity and get a new one. Once he gets a new one, you complete the activity, update his license, and away you go. He's back to being active. On the hours of service section, this driver does not have an ELD, so I do have one that has an ELD. I'll jump on that in a second. In fact, let's see if I can open that right now. Here's a different driver. It actually got my name on it because the ELD is in my car right now while we add it to the system. But anyway, you can take a look here, and you can see all of the logs from recent times. And I'm going to click on the log from yesterday, and you can see our familiar bar graph. You can see when I left my house, drove to work, all that good stuff, when I went on duty, and when I went off duty then for the day. Nice details of the status changes are in here. And then we also calculate the recap, see that how many hours I have available today and how many hours I have available tomorrow. Clearly, I'm not working enough if I have 30 hours still available, so that's not what you want to see. We'll go back to Valentino to take a look at the rest of that. Open up his profile. This is kind of where our safety section starts for our drivers. This is where we would log all the roadside inspections the driver would have. So you can see here, he had an inspection in Cary, North Carolina, the level of the inspection, the equipment that was involved in the inspection, and then what was the violation count and how many of them put him out of service. So here you can see he's got a couple of driver violations and one was out of service. 4 vehicle violations, none of those put him out of service, and 1 hazmat that did put him out of service. If this was a regular driver, he'd probably be looking for another job right now, but it is a demo. The next section on the incident, so if you had a crash, you would log that crash here, or some kind of incident where there was damage. Incident date, where did it happen? Was there towing damage, injury, or fatality involved? Was there a citation? And of course the equipment that you were using at the time. Usually after one of those first 2, you end up with one of these, and that's a violation. And I'll just open one of these up so you can see it. But this is where you would log in any violation you got. So if it was a roadside, you got a ticket, or you had an accident, you got a ticket, or anything, you would put it in here. So you have the violation date, the equipment that was involved, and the federal section. And we have all of the regulations from the CFR 49 part, whatever it is, that could be violated, right? So it's a lot of them. Yeah, I could probably scroll for quite some time here. I'll stop scrolling because I know the screen needs a while to catch up, but there's a lot of those. So you can filter them down. You just, what would come up, I can start typing in whatever's written on the citation itself, and I can do the search, and it'll narrow down my search on the side. If I put the full section in there, it would bring that back also, and then I can just click on any one, it'll accept it and put it in. Excuse me. But you can see this one here, this violation would have been from the 10 to 15 hour rules, and you can see the severity weight is a 7 points and is in the federal DSMS, so this one does count against your CSA score. So then the next tab from our safety section is where you would get a summary for this driver and how they're doing. So in the incident count section, you'll see we have 4 total, 4 towing, 3 injuries, 2 fatalities. The out of service and inspection section, how many inspections, how many out of service, and then the percentage of those inspections that went out of service. And then the basic section for the driver himself. Now, right now there's nothing in these boxes because we're waiting for the FMCSA to figure out what the next step is for the calculation of the CSA rules. The courts decided that they weren't fair and they couldn't be published anymore. There's supposed to be a redo of those rules. Once we get the new regulations, we'll finish the coding on this part and actually calculate the driver CSA score for you. Sorry about that. So we hope to see those come through soon, and then we'll get on it, and then we'll actually be able to calculate the score. You can report on it and rank your drivers based on their safety scores. This is the section for drug and alcohol testing. If the driver had a drug and alcohol test, it would be in there. Driver notifications. One of the things with the ELD devices would be that you can bring in notifications from those devices, telematics from the truck, and those kind of things. So take a look and see what was the issue. Here it came from his ELD device, and he had driven over the rules or over the hours limit. So from this notification, I can do some things like add a driver call, add a note, add a driver training event. I can even go take a look at the sources from some of the vendors that we work with, Omnitrax, TransFlow, PeopleNet, Rand McNally, all ELD providers that we support. So then you can work these notifications and do your diligence to make sure you're keeping up with anything that comes in about your driver's safety. So on the fleet equipment side, and it looks like I'm running low on time, so I really apologize. I'm going to have to go through equipment kind of quick. I click on the tab, and I can see all of the equipment I have here. I'm going to open up a piece of equipment. We'll go through a little faster than I'd like. But, of course, you have the details similar to driver details. You got a tab for registration. You got a tab for the ownership of the equipment, who owns it, what kind of purchase, who did you buy it from, that kind of thing, the term details, all that kind of stuff. Financials, this is something that is primarily used by an independent contractor model or asset light, where you would pay a percentage of the load revenue to the to the owner of the equipment. And in this case, this would be for like a line haul move. We use the amount of revenue that the load has, and that can be adjusted. And then how much revenue of that revenue do you pay because this contractor brought this trailer or the tractor. And then the TMS would use that data to calculate the settlement. Documents, similar to how the driver docs were. Specifications of the equipment, lots of dimensions, what it's made out of, that kind of deal. Gross vehicle weights and that kind of thing. If they have a reefer on the trailer, you'll see there's a refrigeration section here with all the reefer details. The component section, so you can spec out all the components that are on a trailer, like trailers or on a tractor or on whatever the equipment is, brake chambers. So if you get a breakdown, you can always come into the system, see what kind of brake chambers on the truck, and get the shop out there to fix it right away. So speaking of the shop, this is what we would do for service. This is a whole section for purchase orders and service. You see, of course, the top is the equipment itself. I'll collapse that panel. But I can add the purchase order details in the screen, what the PO is for, and the department and the person who requested it. It can be approved by another person. You can see here is the request status, and this one is pending, but it can be approved by somebody. You have your vendor section of who I'm going to send this equipment to get it worked on, who's the contact at that dealership. The estimate dealer here, or the estimate of the service is down here, and who's going to pay for it is here. Then, of course, the service detail, what was it in service for, or the mileage, that kind of stuff. If it is a breakdown or some kind of other thing, we have more detail on the right that uses the VMRS code systems for to explain what the service was for. So later on when you're doing analytic reporting, you know what you're spending your service dollars on. You can put in the invoice line item detail here that comes from the shop. And then all of this can be extracted to your financial system of choice. So you can manage this in this application and then send that data out to your financial app. The last bit, and then hopefully we can take a few questions here, is the fleet equipment sharing. And this is one where I showed you a little bit in the TMS where I could dispatch different equipment from different carriers. So on this top section, I can decide if I want to share any equipment that I own. So if I want to share with everybody that's in Karma, I can do that. If I want to select just specific carriers or independent contractors, I can do that also. In this case, you can see I'm sharing with Champion Trucking. They're the contractor that's leased to my authority, and they can use my equipment. Next box, you can see below who's sharing with me. I have a couple carriers that are sharing their equipment with me that I can haul their equipment. In the next panel down, you can see here where equipment that I feel like sharing with Champion Trucking. I'm not sharing any tractors with the contractor, just my trailers and just my containers. And if I'd like, I can get very specific and share just a single or just a few pieces of equipment by checking this other box down here where it's selected fleet equipment. And then I can pick it on a one-by-one equipment basis and say I'll share these 2 trailers, but that's it. So that's a very, very quick recap of the fleet functionality from an execution and compliance side. Feel free to follow up with us after the call for even more information about MercuryFleet. I'd be happy to answer any questions you guys have. With that said, Kevin, you got some questions?
Thanks, Todd. Yeah, we just have a few questions. I know we're running low on time, so we'll get through a couple of these fairly quickly. First question is if I have another system, is it hard to move to the MercuryFleet system? And then follow up on that, what is the typical install or integration time? If you can address that at all.
Well, I'm not going to say it's always easy. It can be really easy. We have a lot of ways to import data from other systems into our systems, whether that's the TMS, Karma, or MercuryFleet. The good thing is we're used to doing that because we are bringing on a lot of customers. But it all depends on the complexity of your operation. Some customers could be done in a few days. Some very large customers, it can be much longer than that depending on what your needs are.
Next question, does this help with route planning for our private fleet, which only covers tri-state area, all same-day delivery?
Sure, it can. We have, I showed you a little bit in the driver planning board where I can look at the freight I have and plan a driver's day, week, month, however long you want to plan out. We also have an optimizer called Mojo, and Mojo can look at all of the freight you have for a day and optimize it into the best loads possible, and then you can assign your fleet drivers to those loads. So there's a lot of different options for helping you plan from the most basic do-it-yourself to fully optimized with Mojo, and you just sit back and watch.
I think this will have to be the last question. This is regarding the assignment of drivers from a planning perspective. The attendee says you made it look easy because you were dealing with one load and one driver, so it might be easy to assign. Is it just as easy to assign 50 loads to 25 drivers in an efficient way?
From the planning screen, it is pretty efficient. If you saw, I only had 2 loads show up in that planning section below. But if, let's say, I was planning drivers for a particular city and all the loads came into that section, I could drag 6 loads over that I want to put on one driver and hit save, and all 6 of those loads would get assigned to him automatically. So it can work in a very a larger environment pretty easily.
And that's all the questions we have. I want to thank everyone for attending. I want to thank Todd for his presentation today. As mentioned, we will be making this recording available to you, so thanks for attending. In the meantime, if you would like more information about MercuryFleet or want a deeper dive, you can go to mercurygate.com and register your interest there. But we thank you for your time and have a good day. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks a lot.